Each year when we come together, first thing we say, Shana Tova, right? Happy New Year. Today, though, we say something different. We say Gmar Chatima Tova, or Gmar Tov, so that by the end of the day tomorrow, the end of our time together will be sealed for goodness for the new year, that our ending will be good. Gmar Tov. Sometimes I just want to add the words, I hope, onto that phrase, because realistically, it's all a mystery. We start by wishing good year, but as we've pointed out many times, that word year, shana, really can also be the idea of change. So we start the year by saying, have a good change. And then, at the end of Yom Kippur, we check in to see how we're dealing with or reacting to that change. Hope you're having a good ending to your investigation. It's scary to think about change. But the world has changed this past year, and more change is on the way, and the unknown is in front of us. And when I peer into the future, it makes me feel like I know some of the possibilities, or at least in my mind, I think I know a lot of what can happen, but I really actually have no idea what will happen. Just look at everything that's happened in just this past year, and then go back 2 years, and then go back 3 years. We really have no idea what's in store for us. And that unknown, that can be frightening, paralyzing, in fact. Change is scary, and new generations mean change. And so through simple math, we can deduce generations generate fear. Jewish tradition has been using the idea of fear since early Israelite history. It's always used, or most of the time it's used, as a great motivator. Fear promises to be an agent to wisdom. In the first proverb, we're told that we need fear. The beginning of wisdom is the fear of God. Later in Proverbs, it says, one who fears God earns life. This one shall abide in contentment. The Mishnah backs up this idea. Rabbi Hanina ben Dosa said, whenever a person's fear of sin comes before his wisdom shall endure. But when a person's wisdom comes before his fear of sin, his wisdom will not endure. The Zohar, too, explains that the only way to ascend to heaven is through fear. This fear is part of humanity. This fear is part of being Jewish. Jewish thinkers have been wrestling with it for millennia. Now, it does need to be pointed out that there are two major words used for fear in Hebrew. One is pachad. Pei, het, daled. This fear is best described as scared, terror. It's the fight or flight reaction to stimuli that causes the body to react. Have you ever been in the situation where you're alone at home and you hear a noise and you can't explain where the noise came from and your pulse goes up and your adrenaline starts to flow, you feel flush in the face? That's pachad. But there's a different kind of fear in the Tanakh and in rabbinic literature that's used much more often. It's the word yirah, Yud, Resh, Aleph. This kind of fear we also translate with the word awe. Like the kind of awe you feel when you see an incredible sunset. And although many do talk about this idea of yirah being more like awe than fear, and intellectually I'm on board with that definition, it might be more accurate merely to say that yirah is a kind of fear, but it's not pachad. It's not the terror you feel when you're in danger. It's not that kind of fear that keeps you from walking down a dark alley in the middle of the night, or the kind of fear that makes you run from a Doberman pinscher who's foaming at the mouth and chasing after you. That's pachad. That's not yirah. Indeed, fear does evoke a kind of awe for the divine. But it could also lead to feelings of insignificance, dread. Also, fear of God or fear of heaven. Those two things are many times used interchangeably. Two common usages. Can also be fear of the retribution from a divine being who lives somewhere up there. Eugene H. Merrill writes, "There are thus two sides of the fear of Adonai, of God, that which produces awe, reverence, and obedience, and that which causes one to cower in dread and terror in anticipation of God's displeasure." That second fear that leads us to cower in dread and terror, I don't think that helps us to move our spirits in any direction. Sometimes that's the way we can feel when we hear the High Holy Day liturgy. It's, I call it the big brother fear. God constantly watching from way up in the sky, sees everything that you've done at every moment of this past year. They've seen all of it and writes it down in a book. I guess it's good news that no one just got up and ran out of the room. When we think of the fear that generations bring out in us, it seems to me that it's usually the kind that does bring about that feeling of terror. The older generation says, they're changing everything. They're doing everything the way they want to do it and not the way we've been doing it. I don't know how to speak their language. And the younger generation says, why do they always do things that way? I don't want to do that. And I don't know how to speak their language. There's a built-in tension around this dynamic. Some generations fear that another generation will negate them, while other generations fear that they won't be noticed and they won't be appreciated. Maybe if we think about the idea of fear a little bit differently, it might help us. Maybe 3 years ago, Brittany Carr wrote a book about the fear that paralyzes us. It's entitled Fear, False Evidence Appearing Real. It's the fear that feeds upon the mind, because so much of what we are afraid of is really the anticipated result of an unknown future. We make what we think could happen into what we know will happen, and it's so frightening that it interferes with our regular lives. In mindfulness, I said this a couple of years ago, but it is worth repeating. There's a phrase that caught into my head and I never forgot it. It's, our thoughts are really just rumors. They might be true. They might be totally false. They might be half and half. So the first approach to fear is fear of unanticipated change is don't anticipate that change is necessarily negative. Many years ago, my dad recommended a book by Dale Carnegie entitled How to Stop Worrying and Start Living. He said it changed his life. The second chapter of that book says, imagine the worst thing that could possibly happen. Accept it. This is the worst that's going to happen. And then let it all happen, knowing what the worst possible outcome is. Because what will happen will never be as bad as what you concocted in your own mind. The changes that we're afraid of, the changes made from generation to generation are natural extensions of life itself. The natural changes that occur simply because the world is in constant flux. The worst of what you think will occur might, but might not. Maybe in this whole idea, we need to think about change a little bit differently. Bear with me. One of the ways I was thinking we could do this is by treating change the same way we treat a pregnancy that's happening in a family. Now, I know I've never been pregnant, but in my family, we have, right? Yeah. Okay. What happens when a family becomes pregnant? We don't know when the baby will be born. We have an idea, right? A date floats around, but in reality, it's going to happen when it's going to happen. And we can make all the plans we want, but it's going to happen when it's going to happen. And what will happen exactly on that day? Try guessing that and see what happens. We're very careful when we do things, but we continue to go through our life as usual. We pay attention to the details and we make sure that the people we love are safe. And you know, this part is key. We also have a positive outlook on all of it. We anticipate that it's going to go great. In Hebrew, you wish someone b'sha'ah tovah if you find out that someone is pregnant. B'sha'ah tovah means literally at a good hour, but it really means in good time, meaning it will all unfold in the way and the time that it will unfold. It will. And we're looking forward to it. Can we think of change and embrace change in the same way? Finally, this day, this time that we are in has a name. Yamim Noraim, the days of awe. That word yirah is found in the word Noraim. I'm not going to get into the grammar, but Anat Hoffman can tell us tomorrow. The awe is for life. The awe is for the power of life, that we are here and we're experiencing our lives and even the lives of the next generation, and God willing, if we're lucky, even the generation after that. The new year's upon us. New change will be upon us. And when it comes to fearing that change, perhaps it helps to remember that everything is a part of the awe-filled whole. It's not that we have to be in awe of generations, but instead to live with an awe for the unifying force of everything, the Creator, the eternal, Adonai, God, however you conceive and name the divine. That awe leads to gratitude. It's the awe that leads to a gratitude of everything that comes to pass in our lives. An awe for creation, an awe for the world, an awe for our lives, an awe for the many blessings that each of us live with every day. The blessing of our breath, the blessing of our bodies, the blessing of our families, our homes, our work, our lives, the blessings of all of these generations that live together, and that those generations, as they come up to be more powerful, are going to live with that awe in their hearts as well. To carry the awe of existence can help us to appreciate the change that we know is coming, although we don't know what it is or when it's coming. We who have lived on this planet for a little while have been a part of incredibly positive changes in this world, and we have also been part of some difficult challenges of change in this world as well. And we must allow the next generation to take hold of the natural transformations that occur from human experience and show our gratitude for all that is brought to pass in our lives. And the up next generations, they must also approach their lives with awe, which can lead to a gratitude for everything that was done before them to ensure their lives. To carry awe, fear, in a deep way is to carry gratitude for life, for the experience of all of the moments in our lives, but especially for the other generation's existence. And it allows all of us to meet the changes that are coming our way together. L'dor vador. Gamar chatima tova. May you be sealed in the book of life.